I do that, but like now for anything that is for me, it's like no, my expectations are high. Like this is where I'm at. If you want to be part of my life, you got to meet me there.
Yes.
I'm not bringing it down anymore for other people.
I'm glad you said that. Because I'm a real big believer in that, right? You shouldn't lower your standard. You can step down and help somebody up, but like you shouldn't lower what you stand for or the progresses you've made to go down to someone else's level and dwell with where they're at. You've already kind of overcame that, and there's no need for you to sit there. Like you can lift them up. They need to be able to step up. You shouldn't have to step down and lower your standards. So I'm big on that. Yeah. And it took me a long time to kind of realize that I was actually doing that a lot of times. It was like lowering my worth just instead of like raising my frequency. Don't lower your frequency.
And it's just like even people that like there's friends I've had in my life where it's like, yo, it's nothing against them. We just aren't on that same frequency anymore. Right. I wish you well, but we're not there. And like spending time with you sucks the life out of me.
Very much.
And like it's nothing personal. And people sometimes are like, well, don't you think you're being a little egotistical? I think you're better than somebody. It's like, again, it has absolutely nothing to do with that. It's just their values, the way that they are now living their life doesn't align with the way that I am living my life.
That's how it was for me in the streets. Remember I kind of was telling you guys I had to leave. I literally packed up everything and threw away like all my consoles, like literally threw away all my stuff, clothes, everything. And that's kind of what it was for me. Like I had to stop living that, because there was nothing coming from it, and all it was doing was, was keeping me on a low vibrational plane, and just keeping me feeding off the darkness, and which I used as like superhuman strength, I guess, or like a superpower, like you know what I mean, but. Because it was easy for me to feed off the rage, feed off the anger. It was easy for me to justify my negative actions, or that well, they deserve that. You know what I mean? So like, let me give it to them. Like I felt like I was justifying.
And it's always easy to justify that.
Yeah, no, and it's not right though. So I like that's one big part of me that like I really noticed. I was like I gotta break this all off. And trust me, people talk. You know what I mean? Like, oh, like you said, oh, you think you better than the streets now? You think, you know what I mean? You forget where you came from? Like, nah, man, I'm always gonna be who I am. Like, I also have to be able to step into a different light. You know what I mean? Because like, if I know that I could be a voice, and most of us are getting locked up, or most of us are dying off, you know what I mean? Wouldn't you want to save some of us? Yeah. Like, if we can, right? Like, who's gonna take care of our kids?
Yeah, 100%.
If I'm dead, you're dead. Yeah. You know what I mean? Who's taking care of our kids? Some random ass dude that I don't want no random ass people taking care of my seeds.
Right.
I mean, I got people that would like to taco, spank stuff like that, but like, nah, man, I'm not here for that. And so it kind of comes to a point where you're like, look, if you respect me, then you respect me for my decisions, whether I'm holding the corner with you, whatever I'm doing, or if I'm stepping away, working with the government, doing this, and this, you should know that my integrity and my character is solid. Regardless, because that's what makes my character solid in the streets too. The same thing that makes me be able to say like, look, I need to step away from this. I still love y'all. I would still lay my life down on y'all, but I like we almost didn't make it out last night.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? So like,
yeah,
like I said, and some of us don't, or you know what I mean. So it's like at some point you have to be able to just stand in your truth and be like, look, man, I gotta back up from this.
And there's always gonna be somebody trying to take you down. Pull you down,
bro. I love when people be like, "Yo, you changed." It's like, yeah, man, that's the point,
right?
You're supposed to change and evolve and grow,
Correct.
and you stay in the same has you in this mentality. That's why we're not vibing. And it's again, you want to stay there, that's cool, but I'm on this planet having a human experience as a conscious being with the sole purpose of evolving,
right?
Growing my consciousness, learning more, doing more, experiencing life different ways. So now you've done so much self-work, and I know like part of your mental health advocacy is sharing your story. So now now you're working on that. You're working on your own book.
Right.
You do it like me and you have similar thing on like the spoken word poetry thing, and put a lot of our emotions there. So can you tell us a little bit about that? Because I know you don't want to give it all away, but just a little bit on what you're working on and what it's like.
Spoken word too?
Yeah, he did spoken word too.
Welcome to the chaos.
But yeah, man, I mean, you were talking earlier, like you go by Patchez, and you said it because you said your real name is dead.
Correct.
And you died, and you came back to life, and you live a whole new life now.
Off top.
I would love to hear about that, because not many people are able to have that experience and be able to share it the way you so eloquently do.
I appreciate that. So it's kind of like a two-part story, right? So like the younger version of self died off just because of abuse, broken home. the trials and tribulations I went through as a child. So I've kind of been in survival mode pretty much, you could say, since I would say like 5, right? And then I adopted Patchez as like, because I would get clown bullied in a sense or made fun of because I had a birthmark on my cheek. So I embraced it. I was like, all right, well, if you guys gonna keep on clowning me, then you're gonna respect it. So we're gonna find a way for you guys to, instead of talk shit about me, you know what I mean? You're gonna be like, dude, just leave the dude alone. That's Patchez, that's P, you know what I mean? So that's kind of how that started. So then that kind of became who I was as opposed to, my birth name, because that kept me safe. So I kind of came into my identity, and I was like, oh, like, because I was weak, I was broken, you know what I mean? I lived in a lot of fear. Like I said, I came from like an abusive home. I had like a white racist stepfather that my mother married. So like it was, she lived in fear. She was kind of getting abused in her own way. So like it became this armor that, like an armor of God or the universe that was protecting me. And, I lived it. And then it just kind of became, who I was on a day to day, and nobody needed to know my name. So if you didn't really know me since like junior high school, probably 5th, 6th grade, then it didn't even matter, So, and then when I really physically died, I was like literally 21, and then I had an alcohol-induced coma in Vegas on the Strip for New Year's. So it kind of, you kind of got to be careful on what you wish for, because I had always like wanted to die. You know what I'm saying? Because I kind of hated life and hated my circumstances per se, and suicidal ideologies or trying to kill myself or just being reckless to where I was inviting to things that just were chaotic. So like for me, once that kind of happened, like I just never really let go of who I was. And then I was like, well, stand in it, and Patchez or P was just who it was, and you knew what you were getting from there. Anything else was more like a softer, more timid, more just kind of like, it's real weird. You know what I'm saying? Because it's kind of like duality in a sense, almost the light and the dark. Patchez is very super enlightened, even though, like, you know what I mean, who I am is my birthright name is still who I am, but it's just Patchez just put a lot of work into self, put a lot of work into to recreating a better version of himself, not damaged, not angry, not healed, or like he was healed. You know what I mean? He was like the healing part of who I could never be as a child. It just stuck. I guess it was like I said, how artists have their stage names and stuff like that. And that's just kind of what I embraced. And I've always kind of just gone from there. So like I typically know if somebody knows me from way back when, and then as opposed to if they just know me from where I'm at now.
Yeah, that's amazing. After that happened in Vegas, if you don't mind sharing, what was your outlook after you survived or you came back?
Shit, I was like, damn, you know what I'm saying? I was like, shit. No, it changed a lot actually. Like it didn't really end all of my like my wanting to not live. It made me respect a lot of different things. I was like, whoa, like I had to really step back and was like, okay, and really reevaluate who I was, where I was at, my thought process, the way I like if I had anger issues, I just had to really internalize everything and really look at the man in the mirror. So then I was like, well, okay, obviously like God didn't want me to, the door was closed. So I was like, what am I here for? So now I got to kind of figure out how I'm going to deal with it here. Because like you could talk about wanting to like off your life or end it, but then when it really happens and you come back, you're just kind of like, okay, well maybe that's not the route. Maybe that's not really what maybe it's not so bad. Maybe that's not what I need. Maybe I need life.
Yeah.
Maybe I need to start living a little bit more and not wanting to just not live.
Looking at life differently.
Most definitely. And it's not that I really ever had like a bad outlook, right? It's just that like it's circumstantial. If and not that parents are to blame so like kids are a product of their home and their environment, right? And it's just like a lot of things. Like if you grow up around a bunch of gangbangers, 9 times out of 10 you're gonna have that mentality. My father was a dope dealer. My uncles was dope dealers. My aunts was out in the streets. You know what I mean? So like, if you're seeing this as a young child, you don't really even know that your actions are wrong. And so you're kind of just mimicking what you see, not so much what you hear, but what you see. Growing up, you got to figure out how to navigate and work with what you're putting out there. as far as your actions or what you're mimicking, right? So I had to really figure some things out, and then I came to the realization that like I'm putting myself through this, because at some point it crosses over. Like you can no longer blame your circumstances. You can no longer like be like, well, this happened to me, woe was me, or not so much play the victim, because some of us are really victims, right, of circumstance. But you have to then take control of the chaos, you know what I'm saying, that's going on internally and externally. And from there, that's kind of what I did. And even though I struggled, like I still struggled up until I'm still struggling. If we being real, you know what I mean?
Yo,
Life is
healing's not healing is not a linear journey. Like it's kind of comes and goes, and like life
Right.
happens, new things happen. Like
Right.
those triggers are gonna come up. It's how you deal with it.
Correct.
Yeah. But even the people that say they people think they have it all figured out, life is a
Nobody's
daily
got it
struggle.
figured out. No,
Something new will happen every day to you that will mess up your day or
Right.
put you in a bad mental state. So it's always a challenge. Like being human is hard, especially now. Like nowadays, there's with all the information and
Very
everything
much.
that we're getting right away.
how fucked up the world is.
Yeah, man.
Right.
Yeah, so I applaud you for that. I almost died myself
Okay.
of a mountain biking accident, and that's when
Crazy.
my life completely changed.
Crazy.
I went through the depression and self-medicating afterwards, thinking my life was over. There's nothing for me. And then, like you said, like finally I was just fed up with it. I'm like,
Yeah.
wait, I survived for a reason.
Right.
You know, I was this close to dying. Like I'm here for a reason, even
Right.
though it's in a different state. I need to figure something out.
Most
So I got a
definitely.
question for the two of you then, and it applies to me too, because we've all been at that point
Yes.
of death. I've tried to
For
take
sure.
my own life
Right,
as
right.
well.
I remember saying
And
that.
it seems like what I'm hearing from the two of you, and for me, it's like that point was the catalyst to change. Do you both think you would have changed your life? I mean, because I still don't. I think I would have went deeper and deeper and deeper. If that didn't happen, I don't know if I would be where I'm at today. To be honest with you, like
Good question.
that's my perspective of it, because I think a lot of people really change. You change for two reasons: one, because you really want to, or because the universe makes it so uncomfortable that you have to, and you have no other choice. So I feel like we were all in that spot where it's like we didn't have a choice but to.
Right.
I've actually been thinking a lot about that question in the past few months. Like, what would have happened if my accident didn't happen? And I feel like I needed something drastic to happen, because before my accident, I knew I needed to change.
Right. Right.
Every day was on my mind.
Right.
But every day I did nothing. Every day I just, I don't know what I said, like, something will happen if it's meant to happen. But I don't know. Like, I think that I would still be on that path of the rat wheel, like just going through the motions, because that's where my life was leading. I was settling. And I think when you settle in what you're given, that's when you don't grow.
Right. When you're complacent, basically, or
Yeah,
stagnant.
and I've always been hard-headed about change. So like my first I'm from New Orleans.
Okay.
And I was leading a crazy lifestyle then. I was young, like early 20s, like 21. I was digging my grave. And then Katrina happened, and that was my first major reset. It was like, okay. So that's when I moved to LA to pursue my dream, and then I fell back into that cycle again.
Right.
So it was like a common theme in my life that was happening to me.
Right.
And I wasn't taking the opportunity. I think God or the universe, whatever you want to believe,
Right.
was like, I'm gonna give you one more chance, brother. And I'm gonna really show you. I'm gonna take this away from you, and see what you do with it. So I think I think I needed the drastic thing to like learn my lesson.
So it's interesting you said that. So like, so kind of like how I told you, like I was in a wheelchair before. Like, so I was paralyzed at 17, right? So as much as I want to say, like I had a couple of those chances as well. Like I've been on both sides of the pistol. I've been in a wheelchair. I've died. All those like were showing me things, but ultimately for me, the real catalyst was the birth of my first daughter. And even then, kind of like you said, like, we slip, we backslide, right? Because we're still trying to get it and figure it out, because all that really does is open up our pineal to other things and enlightens us a little bit more. I still messed up, and then one day, like, I just gave it all up, and that's really when my change came. I want to say probably 2017 when I walked away from everything. My family at the time, both my daughters, me and Taco were living together with my girls and stuff, and then I was married at the time, and I gave everything up. I threw away everything, and because I got tired of you know, being in the streets, struggling to survive, being angry, you know, not caring if I was going to have to take someone's life, or if you know what I mean, struggling to figure out if I still want to continue my own life. You know, and my daughters, I was like, well, it was just a big struggle on what do I do now, because you know, seeing birth for me was more drastic than anything. I was like, whoa, like it enlightened me to a whole nother like universe. So I think for me it wasn't so much the death and wasn't so much the like being in the wheelchair or the other things. It for me it was probably when my daughters were born, especially like my firstborn, you know, and then even in this I still struggle to get it right. So, you know, like I kind of said earlier, I'm still trying to figure it out because I'm still kind of backsliding in some areas, but I've got a little bit more grasp on it now.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit not, you know, because I've kissed them goodbye and I ain't making home that night. You know what I'm saying? Like that's really where I was at, and you're like, okay, what am I doing? At some point, you're like, okay, what am I doing? You know, or you know, seeing some people like kill themselves personally. Am I allowed to say that? Like, okay, yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like I was going through some things when like part of my time of moving away, and you know, I've had a couple people call me and then I wasn't there to answer, and then you know they took their life and stuff like that. So you know, I was always processing these things, carrying this weight, feeling like responsible. You know. And I remember probably like 2018, I was driving to train some dogs living in the Bay, and I was depressed because I was away from my kids, still trying to figure it out on the freeway. And this car pulled over, and I'm looking, and dude jumps out over the bridge, and I'm just kind of like, what the, you know. And so like you're like, okay, my life isn't really this bad. Like I might talk about it, but I'm like, okay, like you know, and I've done things to like you know inflict pain and want to get out, but I was like, okay, you know. So all these little things were just more like nails in the coffin. Like, it's bigger, it's deeper. You know, you got to do more because, like, are you where this person was at? Like, he ain't think about it no more. Like, you're still thinking about it. You're still trying to hang on to like, should I off myself or you know what I mean, or do I still got some strength to hold on? You know, so it's just more and more and more of those things that kept watering the seeds that have been planted, you know, through conversations with other people or you know, other situations that I have been through. So it's kind of like I said earlier, like I'm still, conversation like with Mikey, like it's still making me realize more and more and more being here on this podcast, opening up and talking about, like I said, about mental health and really, you know, like I'm like, okay, there's something more for all of us, right? So how do we do it? You know, and I guess I'm just trying to practice what I preach and preach what I practice to others. You know, it's just sometimes hard. So I like just trying to figure it out still daily.
What people don't see, and I think what's not talked about enough, is all right, we all had this point where we want to make this change. Like, I can't keep living like this.
Right.
Yo, man, the universe is gonna test you over and over again. Like, all right, you really, like, I'm picking myself up now, right? And like, I'm still getting beat back down.
Right.
But it's like you having that willpower of like, I can never get back to that dark place, so I'm gonna just do whatever I have to do. But like, yo, man, I tried to take my life in 2018, and then I went to rehab in 2023, and here I am thinking like, all right, this kid, you know, I'm never gonna get back there, and it's like, well then, how bad? I've said I wanted to change, and I was doing something, but I wasn't doing enough.
Correct.
And I was still trying to escape everything that I didn't want to face, because I faced a lot of it, but there was still so much. Like, people don't realize, like, yo, when you start the healing process, you open Pandora's box.
Yeah, man.
One, you can never close that, and you don't realize how much is actually there until you open it. And people think, I was like, oh, well, you know, like, and you can compare yourself to other people, right? Like, I can look at you and be like, well, I wasn't in the streets, I wasn't this, I wasn't in a wheelchair, but I had my own shit. And I think everybody compares themselves, and that's where they're like, oh, well, to this like, in a negative way, right? Comparing it in a positive way, like, yo, that guy wasn't thinking about it, and I'm still thinking about it. There's something for me to hold on to.
Right.
But I think people do it in a negative connotation of like, well, this person has it worse than me, so I should just shut the fuck up.
Right.
And push down and push down and push down. And then eventually you're going to implode. So like, that's what happened to me, of why I ended up going back to rehab, because I just was still wanted to escape. Where I was just taking pills and smoking and just doing whatever I could to escape every part of it.
And I appreciate y'all having me, because like it's therapeutic, right? You know, just kind of like getting it off. It's real, man. You'd really be surprised how many people are really going through it. You know what I'm saying? And it sucks. You know, and it hurts, because there's a lot of people that like I've lost, and I'm sure like all of us have, that didn't really have an out. You know what I'm saying? And if we could just have more conversations, more dialogue, more hands out, be a little bit more understanding, even as men, amongst each other, and build a little bit more, build a stronger village. A lot of us, I think, wouldn't feel the ways that we do. Like, I don't like kind of how when we first started, like, well, where do we want to go into? Like I said, like, I'm like, I'm really open. You know what I'm saying? And it's because, like, I'm trying to allow and not be resistant to whatever I might feel, and like you said, like, push it down. I don't want to push it down. Like, I do that a lot because that's a defense mechanism, and it's something that I'm comfortable in. Because, like, when you're numb, you don't really feel nothing, right? Mm-hmm. So you can kind of do whatever, like, you don't really have no conscience behind it.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So, like, then you don't really have to be responsible for your actions and how they hurt others.
Yeah.
Right? Because you're like, man, I'm in pain. Like, I don't really give a shit, like, where you're at. Like, you know what I'm saying? Do you know what
I'm hurt, yeah.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? And that's a real
thing.
Yeah. So, I don't like that because that's not really what I want to be. I'm comfortable in it because, like I said, like, from a very young age, I've had to survive a lot of things. Just but I'm not comfortable, and it's not really who I want to be. I want to shed that dead skin. I want to be able to live in light and not live in darkness, because it's cold. Shit, you know what I'm saying? Darkness is cold.
but I think, like, the human experience, right, is feeling all those emotions and feeling all those feelings, and, like, to be able to experience that light,
right,
you had to experience that dark, right? So, like, two things that really got me through and that I learned in rehab was lead into the uncomfortable, right? Because that's how I'm going to get past it. And if it can be this bad, well, the pendulum can swing, and it has the potential to be this good. So if I'm in this darkest place, the only place I can go is up,
right,
and I can go really fucking high.
Right.
Why would I not want to do that? But, like, it took a lot of self-acceptance to
right,
it.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like you said, like, feeling that uncomfortable feeling that we're human. Like, the definition of an emotion is energy in motion. If you put that down, let that happen. You got to feel that. In order to heal it, you have to feel it, and it's so uncomfortable.
Very
sharing
much.
Sharing it, I think, is, especially, like, for men, we're always told to be tough. Like, we talk about this a lot. You're supposed to have that tough guy persona. And was it extra hard for you, like, the way that you were viewed, to share your emotions? And, like, did you get through that? Or because you're obviously right now you're talking and you're showing a lot of emotion, and that could be called brave in itself.
Good question. So, like, it's not that I was never really allowed to show emotion. I think I just suppressed what I was feeling because there was a lot of negativity around me, right? So, like, so like on one side, I had, like I said, an abusive white stepfather, like, who was, keep my mother in fear. Like, I lived in a lot of fear. And then on the other side, my father was in the streets, so, like, I'd be like his lookout in the projects, or, like, while he was selling dope, he'd get arrested, and then I'm just sitting there by myself, 7, 8 years old, right? So trying to find my way back to where nobody knows what's going on, but I'm not allowed to say anything because, like, I won't be able to get to see him again, or this side of my family, right? So, like, it was, but if I say anything on this side, my stepfather might kill me. You know what I'm saying? And so it was like, I've always been a lover. Like, I've always been, like, I'm very in tune. I've always, even as a kid, like, I've always been in tune, and I'd be like, well, look, this is what, like, they wanted me to go to therapy. I'm like, for what? Like, I'm telling this person what's going on, and he's like, but why? I just told you why. Like, well, but why? You know what I'm saying? I'm like, he's like, but I just told you why. So why you keep on asking me why? Now, while therapy might work and be an outlet for others, right? For me, like, it gave me a lot of resentment because I'm like, dude, like, you didn't help. Like, you didn't help with shit.
Yeah.
You're asking me why, and I'm articulating myself even as a young child. Like, I've always been very, very in tune with the other side, right? So it's like, why am I going through this? So then I became more introverted in that sense. Like, I'm a full extrovert, right? But, like, I like, with my emotions and my feelings and what I felt, because nobody paid attention. I'm like, dude, I'm sitting there telling you what I feel. Like, get me out of this house. Oh, well, you're just a problem child. No, I'm not. Oh, well, you have ADHD, this. No, I don't. Like, I just have no direction, or like, do you know what I'm really going through? This version of me over here, you know what I mean, is being treated one way. This version over me is being treated one way, and then no adults are listening. Nobody. You guys are like, just do as I say and all this, but, like, you guys aren't really hearing the thing, and then you're saying I'm troubled. Yes,
Yeah.
Very much so.
Right.
I got issues, you know what I'm saying? But, like, you guys aren't doing nothing to help me get out of this. And when I tell you something, you kind of make me suppress it because you're not either believing it, or I don't know, you know what I mean? So, like, I learned to internalize a lot. So I always became like a thinker. You know what I mean? Trying to find a way out. Like, so I just would always just sit there and think, talk to God, the universe, like, you know, and just try to figure things out. So I just suppress it in that way. But I've always kind of been open with what I felt. I just stopped talking about it because I felt like nobody really knew how to empathize or understand it, or most people didn't really go through what I was going through.
Yeah.
To be able to, like, kind of like how we were talking about earlier, peer support. Like, if you've been through something and I'm telling you, you're automatically gonna get it, right? So then we can start to have a dialogue, and you know what I mean. I'm like, oh shit, then I feel safer, because I'm like, I can tell, like, when I'm looking at you in your eyes and stuff, like, I know you've been through something, as opposed to looking at you and be like, oh, you don't even understand, because people can really, that's discernment, right? The ability to read the spirit behind the flesh. You know that, or like your intuition, or however you want to look at it, right? So when you look in a man's eyes, the first thing, or when you shake a man's hand, you look him in his eyes, right? Because you're trying to figure out who's behind the flesh. Eyes are the windows to the soul, right? So that's why we look in people's eyes to try to figure out who we're dealing with. So like most of the time, I couldn't really, like, nobody really understood me. So I've always been really a loner. Know a lot, like, a ton of people, but I'm a loner. You know what I mean? Because like kind of like we're talking, I don't really like human beings. You know what I'm saying? Like we're a species. You know
a lot of us don't.
Right.
Animals are great.
You know what I'm saying? Like, and like, that's real. Like,
we have very peoply jobs for people who don't like people.
Correct. But it's because we know how to deal with people.
We know how to deal with people.
Right. As opposed to other people that don't really know how to deal with people.
But like you said, it's the thinking. It's like, all right, let me think on, like, my whole thing, and why I feel like I'm really good at my job and what I do is because I can put myself in somebody else's shoes.
Right, correct.
Right? And I can see, like, all right, and I don't get mad at people anymore,
right.
at all, because it's like, all right, well, you're acting like this because of A, B, and C. And like, I feel like my own therapist at this point, because I can sit and just like, I don't know if it's an intuition skill or whatever it is, but I can, like, all right, yo, it's coming from this place. And I can, like, as soon as something said, it's like, oh, that's what it is.
Well, it's experience. You've been through some right? So like, if you've been, like, you know, and that's why they say, like, that's the best teacher. So like, it's not that you know everything, it's just kind of like, you've been through you've been through so much that you kind of already see before it's coming.
Yeah.
It's just being educated on some topics that most people aren't.
It's like the difference between street smart and book smart.
Correct.
Like the people who were dealing with you at first were book smart.
Correct.
There's like, you have ADHD, like trying to diagnose you, but not like actually seeing the problem.
Right.
I'd rather be street smart over book smart.
1,000%.
Yeah, absolutely.
Any day of the week.
Absolutely.
1,000%. And to kind of touch on that, so like, you know, like dealing with social workers, right? So like, we were talking about like how it works for the VA, helping the homeless and stuff like that. Like, you know, you'll hand them off, but that's where a big disconnect comes in, because they're trying to treat people, or like with mental health issues and stuff like that, from a book standpoint. Or I went to school, I have this, my master's, and but like, you have no life skills.
But you didn't go to war and see what these people are going through.
Correct. So like, how can you identify and tell this man what he needs? This man is literally telling you what he needs. Oh, well, he's aggressive. No, he's not. Like, look at you're condescending on your tone and how you're talking to him. Well, I'm helping him. I can get him this and this. No. The government is giving it to him. All you are is just writing down A, B, and C, and you should be able to place him, right? So like, there's a big disconnect, and then the veteran or the homeless man feels, or woman feels like they're not being heard, and then they're like, this is bullshit. So that's why they don't really want to go and get help, because most of the people are just taking it from a higher standpoint. So they're not really connecting with them on ground level. They're not sitting down there and really, like how we're having a dialogue and conversation right now. They're not sitting eye to eye. They're kind of looking down. I'm like, so what do you need? No, you don't need that. You need this. Like, no, I'm not on heroin. I'm on amphetamines.
Yes. And that's why, right? That's why I hate when you go to a doctor and they immediately prescribe you something.
Correct.
And it's like,
within 10 minutes.
Yes, I don't want to be on medication, but it'll help you get, deal with this. I want to deal with it a different way.
Right.
Like, why are you trying to suppress my mind, without helping my body? It's crazy, the opioid epidemic, how it started. It's a
broken system, because it's not about us; it's about the dollar.
Right, big pharma.
Yes, it's about that. That's why you get. I mean, dude, when I had a psychotic break, I was on 7 different medications.
That's crazy.
And I had a doctor literally for 6 months, just up and down, and I didn't know it. And I'm just like, I need help, so whatever, I'm gonna do it. And I'm literally crawling in my skin.
Right.
And I'm just like, I don't know what to do. And then you can't come off of it.
Right.
So it's like, it's like, yo, like when I say a lot of these like psychologists, it's like, yo, man, you're giving me your opinion.
Right.
I'm telling you I'm telling you what I'm thinking. You're like, oh, you have this. It's like, there was no test done. It's not like I'm going to the doctor and you're taking an MRI of my heart and you can see that it's not pumping properly.
Right.
You didn't do that. So this is just your opinion, and now you're giving me medication off of your opinion, because then I saw a different doctor, they gave me a different opinion.
Yes.
Like, over the last 10 years, I have been diagnosed with every single thing under the sun, and every psychiatrist is like, oh, you don't have ADHD, you're dealing with an anxiety disorder. Actually, no, you have a bipolar disorder, you're not dealing with that. Oh, no, your depression is sparking this. Oh, no, you have a nervous system that is depleted, and that's what's causing. So it's like, so I've seen 7 different doctors, and I have 7 different answers of what I'm going through. And all it's done is confuse me and frustrated me more.
Right.
And then they make you feel like
helpless.
you're wasting their time. You go in to see a doctor, and they're just like, they're ready to get out of there.
Right.
Yeah.
Like they're
On to the next patient, right?
And
and then you
it's a
sit there.
6-month waiting
They
list.
leave you in the room by yourself, just sitting in like, did I get my
Right.
my questions answered? And then you feel lost, and it's just like, come back in a few months when I actually have another opening, and it's just like a constant cycle.
Most definitely, because they're going to get paid off of it regardless if they help you or not. Once you come through that door, they're getting paid, and that's the business aspect of it, right? There's very few people that are actually in it for the love and passion of what they're actually doing.
Yeah.
And that's hard to find.
Right.
So like even what you guys are doing, that's admirable, because like, you know, it's you could tell that you're into what you're doing. It's not just for money or anything else.
We don't make any money.
No, but no, I mean, like you're probably putting money into it to support it.
I spent a lot of money here. We're not making anything.
You know
it's
what I mean?
costing me.
It's a life. It's an investment.
It's an investment.
Right.
One day it will happen, but
Yeah.
it's more of an investment of
But
our
also, like,
peace in ourselves
Yeah,
within
but-
ourselves. Like,
But like the reason isn't money.
Right.
The reason, like, yo, and like we feel like when we leave doing it, like me and Dave talked about, there's been days where like, yo, I don't want to come here. I'm shot. I feel like I'm overwhelmed. But then after, it's like I leave so fulfilled.
Yeah.
Because like, oh, we actually did something good. Like we're like, all right, like I know when this episode comes out, there'll be people that will hit us up like, yo, man, that episode really helped me. Or
Right.
It really touched me. And it's like, yeah, we're doing actually something good. Or like when we came back from the pandemic, the amount of people like, yo, man, I listen to your podcast. Like when I'm getting ready for work or something, like it makes me feel like not so bad. I'm like, oh, we're actually doing something good.
You're doing the
here.
work. You're doing the work that a lot of people don't want to do. You're addressing topics that a lot of people don't want to address. You know what I mean? You're pulling back layers that people don't want to pull back. So they're just listening, and they're like, man, I can do that too. So that's dope.
Yeah.
You know, because like I said, when we first started talking, you were like, well, is it just for the gram, or is it just really what you do? I'm like, nah, it's really serious to me. Yeah. But that's real, you know, because there are really people, unfortunately, out there that are really just doing it for dollars, or just doing it to try to create this image, but they're not really doing
about it.
Correct. They're not like a living testimony, or they're not walking the walk.
Yeah.
So you know that's dope, man. So like I said, I really appreciate it, because I was thinking about everything before I came here. I was like, damn, like, you know, what's this experience? Because I don't really talk to too many people about, you know, I mean, if people ask me, like, yeah, I'm good with talking about it, but I don't really just sit there and have heartfelt conversations where it's like, you know, because most people aren't really worth that voice.
yeah.
Or the breath, you know what I mean? Because most people aren't really trying to hear. They're just trying to they're being nosy. They're not really inquisitive to where like they're trying to empathize or be like, man, I feel that, you know, like damn, like that's healing to me.
Yeah. Like genuine connection.
Correct.
And it's like you said, like practice what you're preaching, right? It's like, all right, so we want people to open up more. We created this platform to show people like, yo, everybody's not always what they look like. People are struggling that you know nothing about.
Right.
And that's what we want to talk about. But we've been very open with every single thing we've been through, because how can I ask you to sit in that chair and be open with
Yes,
me
sir.
if I can't do the same and have the same respect to reciprocate back to you?
Right. Or if I can't look at you and see that this
Yeah.
is really what you got, you know what I mean? Like like that's kind of what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's not like you guys are doing it for money or anything else. Like you can tell that you guys are like, you know, if you watch all your podcasts and you listen to what you guys are saying and all of that, like you can tell that you guys are really involved and invested. So like for me, I'm like, man, it's an honor, because like it's you know, I have people that look at me and that are connected or watch what I do, you know, so they know that like I'm struggling, or I know people that are actually struggling. So like you said, when people hear it, they're gonna be like, they're gonna feel okay, and they're gonna get something out of it, because they know it's real. It's not just like a facade.
Yeah.
They know my struggles per se, or they know that like, man, like he can do it. I can do it. You know, it's giving hope.
Yeah.
Giving more hope to others.
Let me ask you this, because we talked about this part of it. How much has your spirituality played into a lot of your healing?
Man,
I think it's a part that that's another part that people don't talk about a lot.
Yeah.
Because people are like, oh, you're weird and it's woo woo, and it's like, nah, man, I believe like my
Right.
spirituality is what's actually pulled me.
Yes.
Like I feel like I went down the rabbit hole. I went out on the dark side because I wasn't in touch with my soul.
faith.
I'm curious on that. Before you start that, I just want to add, like, how did you find the spirituality? And were you religious? Did you grow up in a religious home at all? And like, how did that inform you later in life?
So I was technically brought up in a religion, like religious home, right? Like my grandparents who kind of like mostly raised me, they were Catholic. So like there was a stint where like I went to Catholic school and stuff like that. They're like pray to Jesus or like, I was like an altar boy and stuff like that. But I was like, I don't, Jesus, like, you know what I mean? I was like, there's something more to this. And then, but I just always like, and I think in my darkest times of going through all the things I was going through and always trying to talk to God, I didn't understand why I was still going through the shit I was going through. Yeah. So it started off as religious, like based because like obviously you're taught what you're taught, right, from the people in your life. But then I was like, okay, well this side is Catholic, but this side is kind of Christian. Like the black side was more Christian, you know what I mean? Like my mother's side was more Catholic. But I'm like, well, what's the difference? So then I started questioning more and more. Then the older I got, kind of got into Islam, like probably about like my senior year, like more Malcolm X based, you know. And then I was like, wait a minute, like it was more. He just stood for something, like you said, stand for something to fall for anything. And so like his ideologies really started fitting in with, I was like, wait a minute, that's what I believe. So then I started noticing that like, even if you were Buddhist, even if you were like all these other things, it wasn't really about religion. Then I started studying spirituality, like what it really meant and you know, to be in touch with self and you know, the universe or whatever happens when you close your eyes. And, you know, it wasn't that I so much doubted God, but I was like, I felt like religion, organized religion was dividing. So, you know, because I had people of other walks of faith that I was like, wait, they believe the same thing that I believe. So like, I was like, it can't really be religion. What is it? What's the common denominator? And most of the time it just became their spirit, and their faith, you know, and then so I just kind of started reading up more and more about that. And, I just became more spirit based, you know, and when I started really traveling the world a little bit more, and going to different like temples or you know, synagogues or whatever it was, like I just was like, it's more spiritual. It's not really religion, because religion just divides us. Because then we hold on to things. If you can call it that, I don't, you know, I won't call it a cult. I can agree that there's some cultish ways about it, right? But you know, I just think that religion, politics, and race are like the three things that divide us the most, right? But why? That's just because how they have it. They don't want us to be divided, or they don't want us to be united. You know what I mean? So those are the three easiest things to divide the populace on. Yeah. But if you really start to talk to people, like if I come across somebody outside of all of that, and I can articulate myself in a way that it's not just based off of what they were taught, they have to reevaluate their thought process and why they feel with it. And then once they get outside, they're like, well, it's only what that was taught to me. Like I got some buddies that were racist, white dudes that were racist, right? But it like, and they'll admit to you that it was just what they were taught. Yep. You know what I mean? It's not that they're like, damn, man. Like when you really start talking to them, you start asking them certain things. They're like, I don't know. That's a good question. So then they start to have to really feel like, well, damn, but we have the same spirit. You know what I mean? Connect. Right. Yeah. And so then they're like, damn, they're like, you're different. I'm like, no, I'm not. That's just what you were taught, that I'm different. But we're all the same people. Like you got white people that are poor, you got Asians that are poor, you got Hispanics that are poor, and you got the same that are rich and all it is, educated, etc. So, you know, but education is the great equalizer. So for me, like once I started removing all these things, I just started judging people on their spirit. And that goes back to the discernment. Reading the spirit behind the flesh. Well, when I look in your eyes and I'm, you know, the vibration, where's your frequency at? That's spirit. That's not religious based. So then I started getting more into spirituality. You know, even though I have some ideologies based off of religion, I don't really hold on to that as my basis. Like I just, you know what I mean? I'm spiritual. That's what I tell most people.
I mean, I think religion is cool in the sense where like, it's kind of like you know, pick your own playbook kind of thing. Like, cause I've read the Bible, I've read the Torah, I've read the Quran, studied all the different religions, and like there are certain common denominators across the board. But then there are certain things where you're just like, yo, I really resonate with that.
Exactly.
And it's like you kind of like you said, we're all taught something growing up. Right. But it's like as you get older, you're like, no, I want to build my own faith, my own spirituality. What do I believe in? And then have the strength to be like, I don't give a what you're saying. Correct. I believe what I believe in. Right. Don't tell me that your way is right. Right. How do you know?
Right. Yeah. It's what works for you. Yeah. At the end of the day, and I had to go with what worked for me. You know, and that's what I did, and then I just spent a lot of time sitting with self and the universe, and just being alone and just putting in manifestation. And it started working for me, you know, because like I said, when I died, Jesus wasn't there for me. You know what I'm saying? No, I'm not knocking anybody else, but when I was paralyzed and I was like, dear God, help me, you know, you know, people could say, well, then how were you healed? I can't answer that part, but like, you know what I mean? I know it wasn't like a specific entity. And that's just my belief now, and just on the things that I've been through, because I've prayed a lot, and it just, I don't feel like those prayers were answered, because if it was, why is why is there famine? Why is there wars and kids are being killed? And if God really loves us in the way that they preach and all this, like, well, why is he letting it happen to these people? Because I'm sure these people are crying out to God on a daily basis, praying their hearts out.
Yeah.
But yet people are still, killing them off, praying to the same God.
But you're right. Yeah, like, why do things happen when your religion says be kind to your own fellow man and stuff like that, and you're like hating and racist, and,
right?
It's obviously like a rabbit hole that, like you said, could be for a whole another show.
Oh, another topic.
But one thing you said that I think that people need to do is like you said, you traveled,
correct,
and you went to places.
Yes, sir.
I feel like people. I'm from New Orleans, and there's like a part of small town New Orleans that I grew up in, and like some of them have never left their small town, and they have like this one way of thinking. And I'm like, how do you? There's a whole world out there. You judge this world, but you've never been in it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So like, tell me maybe one of the best places that you went, or
That's
like
funny.
a great memory.
I felt like that was gonna come up. So like, I just got back from Japan. Well, not just got back.
That
Damn,
place,
I want to
just
go
went
there
too.
so
Yo,
bad.
Hey, you
highly
It's
recommend.
number
dude.
one on my bucket
Like,
list.
It's dope.
Amazing. Like, you talk about like, and same thing. People are like, why would you go to Japan? It's terrible. It's like, have you ever
Have
been?
you been?
I'm
Then
like,
how
why
can
would you
tell
not
me?
go to
Right.
Japan?
Yeah, like, yo, honestly, bro, it was the most amazing culture. It was,
Asians are dope.
it was clean.
would
It was
love to go there, man.
respectful. Their sense of spirituality. Like when I was in Osaka, we bounced
Right.
all the time.
Right,
like, yo,
right,
you
right.
could just the energy. You could just feel
Yes.
it.
So
Like,
then
it's-
you know what I'm saying about, like, and that's
Yeah.
kind of what I'm saying. Like, once you start to get outside the states and all that, like, it opens up a whole nother like world, right? Japan, like, it was just recent, so like obviously I loved it, but like the biggest thing for me was like when I went to like Thailand and Bali, that kind of started a few things. But probably like my most memorable one outside of like Germany and going to the concentration camp was I spent a lot of time with self in Costa Rica. And I really had to sit with, like, I spent like a month out there the second time I went. The first time I was there 2 weeks, but the second time, like, I really sat with myself. And when I came back, I came back sober. Stopped self-medicating and stuff like that. But I, like, on this one part of Costa Rica on the Caribbean side, actually where Malcolm Jamal Warner just died, like in that area, Cocolis, Puerto Viejo, Limon area. There's a lot of like yogi, spiritual people. They do like, ayahuasca retreats. Just like, it's all real like, hey, you know what I mean? Like, just real like easy going and all of that. I really just sat with myself. That was one of the first times that I had really just sat alone with myself. And obviously things were building up to that, but that one space specifically, it holds a real genuine and loving space for me. When I think about it, I'm like, okay, get back to that space.
Okay.
Because there's just the energy there is just off of the hook, and I was able to just kind of be alone, and just look at the water, sit in the water, sometimes sit on the beach and not do anything. But when I really started traveling, it opened up my eyes, and I was like, okay, because like if you go to like Thailand, you'll see swastikas on their temples, and just kind of like, but we're known that it's just a hate symbol, but then that's really like a cross to them, or like like a symbol of peace and stuff like that. So then like you really got to start opening things up and really reviewing what we've been taught, what's been programmed into our minds and our views, So I just, when I traveled, that's really when I started to really was like, okay, like you said, like most people don't get out of the valley, because I'm born and raised right here in the valley, and how can you ever grow if you're just being taught the same things, and nobody has anything else to share? Mm-hmm. You're a lamb getting led to the slaughter.
Yeah. Yeah, people think, like I was born in the U.S. I love the U.S.
Right.
My family's from Colombia, Medellin.
I
And
wanna go
like
there.
when you go there, people are mostly poor or like,
Right.
lower class, let's say middle class. But they have this spirit, this like sense of happiness about them. There's always music everywhere you go. I don't know, have you
Right.
been? Medellin, anyone?
I will be going shortly in the next year.
You'll be walking through the streets and there's just music playing. There's
Right.
the little bodegas, if you will. there's people outside like drinking and laughing and sharing jokes, and you go to the parks and there's music playing. It's like money isn't everything.
Correct.
You know,
Correct.
yes, it would help them
Right.
in so many ways, but they find a sense of peace. And like here, we don't have that like culture.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's always like, you know, in certain places there is, right?
No, I was saying like no, we don't have a culture. Like you're right. Like
We don't have like I went to Europe and I was in Switzerland, and they would take the like a 2-hour siesta, and
We need to adopt that. Or in
Yes.
Japan, they don't start their day starts with their meditation,
Right.
their tea, and their quiet time for themselves. Like, nothing in Japan open till 10 a.m.
Yeah, no, at all.
Like at all. Like there was no stores open. Like me and JP and Skyler would get up. We were walking around. It's like 8 a.m. Like there's nowhere to go. You know what? The only place you could get coffee from was Starbucks.
Right.
crazy, man.
Like that's it. Starbucks and
they like
McDonald's were the
simplicity.
only thing that was
Yes,
open.
right? And you know, it's like we do a lot of great things here, but there's there's something missing, and it's becoming very apparent
Very much so.
every day now. You know, so traveling, I think it helps. It would help immensely if you saw what other people are doing and adopt some of those ways. you know?
Correct. Sit with other cultures and not just be stuck in what you know and just listen. You know what I mean? Sit there and just observe.
Yeah.
That's kind of how Costa Rica was for me. You know what I mean? Like you said, there's music in the streets. People are just there's simplicity in life, and they're not caught up on what they're wearing. They're not caught up on the image. They're not caught up on none of that. They're okay in their poverty, because everybody is pretty much they just live like that, and they live off the land, and they that's just what it is. Nobody is. I'm not saying that they don't got their own little issues, but like you're not calling 911 if you're doing it. So people, they live a little bit better with each other, because like you're all equal. There's like a great equalizer within that, because you're not just gonna off somebody because you're not doing nothing. It's so you got to respect people and respect the ways that they live, and when you go there, you're kind of like, okay, like, man, just let me be observant and absorb.
Yeah.
Absorb what's going on.
The one thing I realized too is like, as American, and it kind of sucks as Americans, but we had this happen when we were in Japan, where we went to one of the temples, and the temples, please take your shoes off,
Right.
no cell phones, and there was a monk doing a whole they were blessing something because somebody in this guy's family passed away, and it was a whole ceremony, and then there's like these stupid Americans talking phones out, and like JP turns looked at him and like, what? And it's like, we have this audacity that because we're Americans we can do whatever we want. And it's
wherever
like,
we want.
you're travel somewhere else, respect the culture that you're in.
Right.
They have ways that they go about things. Respect it,
Right.
learn it, be a part of it.
Right.
Like that's why we have such a bad reputation. It's like, it says no phones.
Right.
It says take your shoes off, and there's somebody literally in the middle of a ceremony. Like, what are you doing?
And then you wonder why they act the way that they are here. And we look at them like they're crazy, but like that's how they're bred. It's embedded into them. Seriously, I'm sure you probably saw some kids taking the train, right?
Yeah.
So at 5, 6 years old, there ain't no adults around.
No,
they're just and it's safe like that. That's absurd to us.
Yeah.
But over there, it's like it's good.
Right.
So it's just cultural, and we need like you said, we need to adopt some of these ways, and I think we would be more peaceful and not as hateful or spiteful amongst other people. We'd be a lot more happier.
Yeah, just we're not teaching kids like the right things
At
now.
all.
Like everybody wants to be TikTok famous, and
Right.
there's a lot of good things coming from that, but we're not teaching manners.
At all.
Or
respect.
respect.
Right.
Like when I first got to LA from New Orleans, we would tell everybody hello. How you doing? And when I got here, that like
Out the door.
out the door real quick. When people started like crossing the street, when I tell them hello, like clutching their purses.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
I'm like, do I look like I'm gonna attack you? I just said, how are you doing?
We're rude here. We're passive aggressive.
You know,
I'd like
but
to
certain
say.
places, certain places you go to, New York, people could be rude too. I've also been in New York where people are super helpful
Right.
and like, go out of their way to like a stranger, go out of their way to help me. You know what I mean, or tell me hello.
I think it just depends on bringing it back. It depends on the person. It depends on the upbringing.
Yeah,
depends
Right,
on
right,
for
right.
sure.
what you've been through. Like we've all been through something, so we're so much more kinder, and we have
Yeah.
so much more empathy. And I think that's what it boils down to, is that like in this country we lack so much empathy.
Empathy, sure.
And we can change it, right? Like,
Yeah.
we have the power and the ability to set a new vision for people, because it's contagious. So if I wouldn't be here if Mikey wasn't who he was and we didn't click and he didn't extend himself and go out of his way per se to be like, oh, hey, what's going on? And get to know the deeper part of me, right? So like if we do that, and I'm kind of the same way. Like I'm like, no, I want to be a part of this. You know why? Because then that's two people. Now it's a chain effect. Now others
Collective.
are gonna, they're gonna come into it.
Yeah.
You're gonna start bringing more and more people in that maybe he might not know, or I might not know, but now we're all one, and that's why I said it takes a village, right? It takes a village because now with 3 people, like we've conquered 10 more people.
For sure.
And changed the views of those many people that might not have looked at it like that before.
Yeah, and you're paying it forward, and like you may not know, you may have helped 100 people, and you'll never meet them, and you have no idea who they are. But because it's like you said, that chain reaction, you helped one person, and it just kept on going.
Yes.
I'm like, yo, man, that's what we're really trying to do here. It's like I don't think we really like. I think I'm too hard on myself a lot of times. It's like, oh, we got to do more, and instead of being like, yeah, man, we like. Sophia told me the other day, like last year we had 215,000 views across all of our podcasts. That's 215,000 people that listened to what we said and took some, and we'll never know if we really touched somebody or if we saved somebody's life. Like, yo, it could be one thing you said that saved somebody's life that you have no idea.
And all you got to reach is one person. That's what
and
they
it makes
say.
it all worth it.
Right. You know what I mean? That's kind of like the motto. Each one teach one, what's not. You know, if this goes on and one person is touched by it, you did your job. Don't look at the whole, like the big numbers thing or like some quota. No, you just need to reach one person because the power of a seed, right, is powerful. And I think people forget that, like, because they say, well, have faith of a mustard seed. Well, a mustard seed is yay big. So, like, just if you keep on planting seeds, which you guys are doing with this, then you're watering it because it's one podcast that's going to go into another to another. All they're doing is planting seeds and then watering it. And that's all you have to do. Your job is being done. You don't have to try to do it. You guys are actually doing it. So I commend you guys for that because, like it takes effort. It takes, you know, knowledge of what you guys are doing and the want and the willpower to show up and continue to do this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that you brought up the planting seeds. I've talked about that in past episodes about us. You may not have realized that you planted a seed a long time ago in your life, and then later on it bears fruit.
Yes, sir.
And you're like, oh,
I
learned about something like And you're right, like us leaving today and just being kind to the person at the coffee shop.
Right.
That could be a seed that's planted in their life. Maybe they're having a bad day. That's
and
why
you guys planted the seed in me. Like y'all brought me to tears. You see what I'm saying? Like,
hey, we got him.
Like no, but this is kind of what I'm saying.
We've done that a lot on the show.
This real men.
We didn't expect this. Like, this is something that happened, and I'm sorry to cut you off there.
No, you're fine.
We in the beginning, we were just talking shit about like nightlife and the crazy shit that happened to us, and we didn't realize in these conversations we were all like experiencing trauma and going through our trauma, and people that we never expected would be crying.
Right.
And then they'd leave, and Mike, like, can you believe that just fucking happened?
Yeah. First season, we had 40 people on the show, and all 40 people we knew, and we had no idea that this person dealing with the same struggle, and these are people we were with on a nightly basis. Had no idea they were that deep.
And you always knew that like mental health would be like behind. Yeah. The hook was like telling crazy stories about what it was in nightlife, which there are plenty, and maybe we could hear with some of yours, right? But then it morphed into, no, this is more important. Like dealing with this trauma and the mental health, and that everybody's struggling no matter what they look like on the outside. Yeah. Right.
Like you could see the highlight reel of what you look like on the outside and like all the cool things that we all get to do. But it's like, I still go home at the end of the day and I'm still sad. I still sit and cry in the shower on some days. Right. You know what I mean? And it's just like, it's real. I've done all this work. I have all these things going on. It looks really cool on the outside, but some days, I just don't got it. Right. Yeah. Or something comes up and I can't, it overwhelms me and I can't do it.
So how do you guys recharge? Like, because I'm sure like dealing with people that are going through things, how do you guys recharge on with with where you guys are at? Do conversations ever trigger you or bring up, things that you guys are feeling? Or because you guys are human too, like you said, you guys are struggling, I'm sure, in some areas, or still working on it. So how do you guys deal with that, like when you're always addressing other people and I guess
that's great.
How do you deal with whatever it might bring up within you guys?
Just that question alone, like, it makes me think. Every time I leave here on the drive home, I'm like, I like what that person said, and I want to try to implant that. What's the word? Implement. That's it. That into my life, and to change my way of thinking. And a running theme has been this social media thing for me, and that's maybe a deeper thing that I avoid it for some reason, and I think I know what it is, but the way that I recharge from those, I think these conversations actually energize me is the way of recharging.
Okay.
Because we come in like earlier, I came in, dude, I felt like so tired.
Right.
It's been like the past 2 weeks have been busy in a good way,
Right.
but they've been like mentally and physically draining. And this morning I was just like, man, I don't feel like doing this. But now I'm in it with you, and I'm enjoying this process.
Right.
Yeah.
So every time I leave here, I'm like, okay, I'm ready to go now.
No, I definitely agree with that because like my head runs 24/7, right? But when I'm here and I'm present. That's how I know I'm doing the right thing. So a lot of the times I do feel that energy. But there are some times where like somebody says something, I'm like, ooh, I can feel it in a part of my body.
Yeah.
But like for me, a lot of it is like, yo, I very much need my alone time. Right. So after I finish these podcast episodes, I go home.
Okay.
I sit, I'm by myself, I throw on some frequencies, I meditate, and I just whatever came up, I ground, I listen to what it is. Okay, I understand. Okay, I feel it. All right, cool. I can identify it. All right, we good. And then like I'm just taking, and then like I'm shutting my brain off. And like I love TV and film. Right?
Okay.
That's what I went to school for. So like I pick it apart. Like for me, it's like I don't just watch the movie. I watch the film.
Right.
So like I'll throw on something that I've seen before that I just love, that I can really just like feel captivated by, and then I just kind of shut my brain off. And just kind of go there for a little bit and then go to sleep, wake up the next day, journal it all out. And, like my morning start, I have to, when I wake up, the first thing I do is I meditate, I journal, I stretch every morning, no matter what. And that's how I do to get my day going. I mean, bro, after festivals, nobody's allowed to talk. After like DC Vegas, no one's allowed to talk to me for a week, bro. Like
I can only look. I got my taste at EDC, and I was like, okay, because I had to drive back home, and I was like, yo, this is intense. This is a lot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was like, I'm glad this isn't every weekend.
No, I agree with the alone time. One of my favorite things to do if I'm like feeling low or depressed, I just go on a drive.
Okay.
Even though we're like in our car all the time in LA, but I go to like the PCH and I just drive up.
Right.
And I put on the music and I put the windows down and I just feel it, like, and that's like therapy to me.
Yeah.
Like I know traffic sucks, but like I love driving is the only time that I feel at balance with everyone else on equal. We're all sitting
Right.
in our cars.
I get that. I get
No one
that.
knows. I don't get stared at. I get, I'm in a wheelchair. You get stared at all the time, and that gets. Sometimes you're just like, man, I'm just
Like,
living my
dude,
life, bro. I'm not
yeah,
inspirational because I'm buying some cereal. Like we go through that. We go through that.
That's crazy.
Wow, you're out there living your life. I'm like, I just bought a donut.
I'm just trying to eat.
Like
the rest of us.
people mean well,
Yeah.
but
You should try Legos.
no, I've been looking at. I want to do the DeLorean.
Bro, I have
The DeLorean, the
Lego
bonsai
sponsor me.
tree.
I'm gonna say it every episode.
Yes.
I actually, I was the other night. I was actually looking for a 2-bedroom apartment, not because I need a 2-bedroom apartment, but because I've run out of space to put Legos.
That's crazy.
I'm like, I need a bigger place so I can build more Legos, because right now I can't build anymore.
I'm in love with Legos.
Bro, Legos.
Yeah?
I love Legos,
Ever since
man.
a
Like
kid.
for my anxiety,
Yeah.
like when I got sober, that's what I did. Like
Interesting.
when I was having really bad cravings, and like I get it's still now, like there's always a set in my house. If I get really overwhelmed and really anxious, and like I've done a good job, or I don't have anxiety attacks like I used to. I used to get them on like a weekly basis. Now it's more far and few in between. But it happens. Like I'm human. It's gonna happen. I've accepted that. I'm okay with that.
Right.
But I know that if I'm doing that, I just need to break out that box and just sit. My hands are moving. My mind's on something. I'm getting something done. I put on like Friday Night Lights in the background, or a show that like I just love, that is just easy for me to be there, and I just chill. And then after an hour, I'm like, I'm cool.
What about you? What do you?
I do. I sit with myself, and I like plants.
Okay.
Like succulents, So I like to, get my hands in dirt and ground a little bit, and just sit there and just be by myself outside of like listening to music. I also like sitting in the car.
Yeah.
I do a lot of that just because I don't really have a lot of like downtime. So anytime I do get it, like I try to just be with self and decompress as much as possible. Because I mean, I got 2 girls. They're always one just left for college, but my youngest is, I'm always like hands on, and then I work a lot, right? So it's like anytime that I get, I try to just sit with myself. I listen to a lot of music, but plants is probably like my biggest thing right now. It was working out, but then I kind of it's shifted a little bit. So I'm trying to get back into that, but that brought up a lot of pain. So trying to find a balance because I was working more physically, but then like I was ignoring my spiritual side of it. So it was like, yeah, I was looking good physically, but like it was bringing up more issues within myself because then I was getting still a little bit more aggressive. Wow. So I kind of had to I was like, okay, like I had to find a balance. So then I just kind of started sitting with myself a little bit more, you know. That's pretty much it.
Obviously, we're here trying to spread mental health, especially male. What's one of the best advice you were given as a male for your mental health? And if you would talk to your younger self, what's the advice that you would give him?
I'll start with the advice. I would tell myself, it's funny you said it, but I would say it's okay. It's okay. You know, I say that just because like those were my grandmother's last words to me before she died. Those are her last words, period. It's okay. You know, and that you know, and I was shroomed up. I was smoking like with her. You know what I mean? And she said that, and it just kind of like it just hit me heavy. Wow. And I've always, anytime anything goes bad now, like I just say it's okay. Like that's really what it is, and that calms me and grounds me back. So like that's something that I would have loved to have heard sooner. So like that's something that if you know, like I tell my girls that it's okay. Like I just try to tell them it's okay. Like this too shall pass in a sense. You know. So that is what I would tell my younger self. Like it's okay. But hindsight is 20/20. So you know what I mean. Didn't think I'd be here, etc. To be able to tell myself that. But I would definitely be like, look, it's okay. Chill out. As far as like mental health advice, I've been given a lot. But honestly, it'd probably be you know, set my boundaries and not be afraid to stand in them. You know, like kind of like I think on the earlier podcast, it's okay. Like it's okay to say no. You know what I mean? Like it's okay to put yourself first. You know, because like even like they tell you in the airplane, if it goes down, put your mask on first. Well, there's a reason for that because you can't help anybody else if you're not helping yourself, right? So that's probably the best mental advice or like mental health advice I've been given or like that I've heard over the time. You know what I mean? Trust the process. You know, look out for yourself, you know, because you can't do nothing for nobody else if you're not looking out for yourself first and foremost.
Spot on, dude.
I love these unexpected conversations because, you know, I didn't know anything about you.
Yeah.
You know, I was literally in the bathroom before we came in here. I'm like, hey, what should I call him, Patchez? Like, what are we going to talk about? Like, mental health? All right, let's do it.
Yeah.
And then, like, diving into the unknown
Right.
I think is the most exciting thing that you could do.
Yes, sir.
No, but brother, one of the things that I love that I got to connect with you about, like when we first met, and we got like really deep. I met him working festivals, but then like there was one festival we just shot the shit for like an hour. Like we forgot work was going on, and we just literally got deep into conversation. But like we got deep into how much it means to the both of us being a mental health advocate, helping people from the places that we have been and the struggles that we have gone through, and like why it's so important. So I would love to just hear more from your perspective on like what it means to you to be a mental health advocate and like the depths of where it comes from and why you think it's so important. I mean, especially now more than ever, like we spoke about.
Right. I think for me, obligation, right? It's like a key word for me, obligation. So like I like if you go through something, because I don't think I'd be where I'm at if other people hadn't gone through things and were able to see things in me to basically help assist me at like the darkest points of my life, even if I didn't really know that's what they were doing. So I think like I felt obligated to help others. You know, when you lose people to like mental health, I think it deepens the sense of accountability to like now you need to be able to help people or you should know what to look for, right? So that's kind of where it comes from me and why I think advocacy is very important because like I should be able to see things in people. So like if I can, like I feel obligated to help. You know what I mean? I feel obligated to say something or try to make them smile or just take them away from the point of where they're at that moment, even if it is for like a split second. Because if not, then what am I really doing with what I've gone through?
I feel, but also I have to believe like, yo, all the dark I went through was for a reason.
Correct.
Otherwise, like I'm just gonna be mad at God, universe, whatever you want to call it. Like, so why did I have to go through this? Like, what was the point of putting me through that much pain and suffering?
To be a tool.
Correct. But I'm saying, but like, definitely. And now I truly believe that, and it's like, all right, cool. But same way, it's like, Well, now as a tool, well, then it is an obligation
Right.
to help people that are struggling, to look at my friends and family and everybody that are around me, or even just the random people I meet when I'm out doing a speaking engagement that like pull me aside. It's like, yo, I'm really struggling with this. All right, well, yo, reach out.
Right.
Like,
Definitely.
talk to us. And like, we have the resources, we have the people we've partnered with, the rehab facilities, things like that, where we can help people. So it's like we should be paying that forward, like the people who helped us in those dark times.
Yes, sir.
And that conversation that you guys had at that time was like the conversation that needed to happen for both of you, right? Because then this wouldn't have been. You would have been here.
That's
like,
that's
you know
kind of
what I
like
mean?
my point. So like what you're saying, like, so he knew, like, I knew he went through some things, and just when he started talking to me, he automatically was like, oh, he gets it, right? You've been through it.
Realize it,
Right.
You can realize it in other people. So like there's certain things that I'm able to pick up on, and for me it's more intuitive. Like I can just be around a person, and like I'm very much someone who picks up on energy. So like I can feel a shift real quick, or I can feel when somebody's putting it out there but holding it back, and like, so what's really going on here? Like, let's talk about it. Like, well, what are some of your tell signs that you see people are struggling that you're able to? Because yo, man, especially men, like, we're not gonna put it out there, but we need somebody to dig.
So have you ever heard of motivational interviewing?
Interviewing, no.
Like, so like it's a term that was used when I was working with the Department of Veteran Affairs, helping like the most chronically ill homeless in the Los Angeles County, right? So it's a term that they use to basically, like, you ask people without saying, well, how are you feeling today? Because that could be a trigger to them. You go in a roundabout way of saying something else that's not so much touching, or doesn't feel heavy. Motivational interview, like, you can interview people motivationally without like really touching a subject. So I could be like, so, you know, what'd you do today? And just by little things like that, I catch their tone. You know what I mean? So for me, and it's kind of like how you go back to like intuitivity and stuff like that, intuition, the sixth sense, frequency, energy, discernment. It once you kind of hone in on that, you're able to kind of ask questions indirectly to be able to get the answer that you want, instead of asking directly, because asking directly could be too heavy for people. So like that's just something that, like, for me, like anytime I talk to people, I usually don't ask like a direct question unless I feel something heavy, like not heavy in a negative way, but heavy in a way where I'm like, okay, like I have to break down something to be able to get to the depth of the person who I really am, because you can see like I guess a wall up, or maybe they're just like they're acting too hard, so you have to kind of like break the ice a little bit, like throw out like an icebreaker. So sometimes you need like dark sense of humor, sometimes right. Because you got to see, or maybe they'll give you a cue on they'll say something where you're like, where that's coming from. And that's it. And then I guess just being, masking my own feelings and my own rage at times. I guess you kind of learn how to, read up on what other people are doing, because you've done it. We've all worn a mask at some point in the time, because that's part of it, right? We don't, like, we smile even though we're crying inside, or we're broken inside, but we'll still be smiling because we really don't want other people to feel anything that we're going through, or we want them to like feel happiness, right? Because we don't want them feeling like what we feel, right? The like dead inside, technically, So I think it comes from that.
And like I think a lot of people, like, they want to talk about it, but like you said, like you got to kind of put that little you got to put those breadcrumbs out there and let them come to you, because they're not gonna open up without you fishing a little bit for it, because they don't know if they can trust you. They don't want to talk about it. They
or it's hard.
Ask about it. It's hard for them to open up, things like that. So it's like, you definitely gotta. I never heard of that term, motivational interviewing, but like, it makes a lot of sense. I do the same thing. It's like, well, let's just start with something else, because eventually something's gonna click.
Correct.
And so I'm gonna pick up on something.
Right, and then you just water that seed, like you plant it, and then you see if it takes or not, right? And that's kind of all it is. And then it's pretty much just pen to paper from there.
Yeah. One thing I've been trying to do more is, like, when people ask, if somebody sends me a text and they're like, "How are you doing?" I'm trying to be more honest.
Right.
Instead of like, "Good, busy." It's like everybody kind of uses that response, because it's like, okay, well, you're busy. Let's go about our day.
Right.
But I've been in like the past few days, I've been trying to be like, I'm doing this. I'm struggling with this. And I hit you up. And I was like, man, I'm just lonely, like I was just calling to see what was up. And I'm just trying to be more honest, because then I think being honest with other people, you can be more honest with yourself.
Now, is that for just anybody that texts you, or is it like specific individuals?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'm just trying to like break up the monotony of like the same responses.
See, I feel like
You
I'll
know?
do that. There's certain people I'll
Right,
be
that- I
like
gotta try
honest
that.
with,
Right.
and there's other people I won't.
Well, you
be,
don't
or,
want to get into.
Yeah, well,
right.
then there's even other things like if certain people reach out to me, like because when you called me and then I texted you, I was on a date, and then literally as I was finishing dinner, I was like, hold on, sweetie, I gotta call my boy back real quick. She's like, yeah, no problem.
Right.
So, but it was just like if that person's important to you, and he's like, nah, I'm just lonely, having a hard time. It's like, all right, well that's my boy, and I appreciate he's putting that out there. I appreciate that he's reaching out, and I want to be there for him. So it's like, yo, this is important. And she's like, no, I get it. God, do what you gotta do.
Yeah, I'm not gonna. You gotta protect your energy too. You can't
Yeah.
tell like certain people, like a stranger, like will text me. I'm not gonna be like, I'm just crying in my pillow right now.
Or you could just see how it goes. You know what I mean? Like,
Sometimes strangers are the best ears, right? Because they don't know nothing about you. They're not.
And
They
you never
don't
know,
come in judgment or anything.
Right, and you could be helping them. Like,
Correct.
oh wow, this person opened up to me. So refreshing. Like maybe I could open up as well. So that's kind of what I've been trying to do, and like just be better at communicating.
I'm working on that.
Yeah,
it's always a work in progress.
Right.
Yeah.
Always a work in
Right.
progress.
Trying to recognize, I guess, where you're falling short is major, right? Because I know that like I don't always show up in the ways that maybe others would want me to. And it's not so much I think that I don't know how to. I think it's just that I show up differently, and I think that that's just the way that I know how to and how I do it. And I try to give people their space until it's something like I feel like is real urgent. So like you saying that, it kind of makes me like think a little bit like I need to get better at that, right? Because then maybe I'll help others be a little bit more forthcoming and truthful with their feeling.
It's like practice. Like I feel like I gotta practice what I preach, right? Like
I'll
I
talk.
can't
I'm
like
big on that.
I can't sit around here and try to be this mental health advocate, but then let my mental health go to shit. Because then like how I'm like it's a really inauthentic
That's
way
a
of
tough
doing
one,
it.
though.
You know what I mean?
I feel like that's a tough one. And if you learn that, please tell me how, because I feel like
so I think it's not that like listen, it's gonna go to shit, but I'm honest about it. So like if I am having it, so like I'll put on social media like there's all these posts out there of like me like all this positive things and talking all this, but then there's things of like, yo, honestly, I'm just having a really shitty day today, where it's like being authentic about it. It's like I would feel terrible if I'm preaching it and then I'm just lying to everybody as I'm sitting here. It's like as long as I'm authentic, because you're right, no one's gonna be happy all the time. We're all gonna have bad days, and sometimes shit gets shitty. It happens real quick. But as long as I'm authentic about it,
I think I'm
like
just
that's
better
fine.
receiving or like giving than receiving. I think it's hard to receive sometimes. Like I can receive this, right? Because you'd have to really like have seen hell or really seen some things in life, some real darkness, for me to really be able to like accept what your word is to me. And it's not that I shun off, but I try to really just filter a lot of things that people say to me. Maybe I'm a little bit delicate. Maybe that's sensitive. I'm not really sure yet. But I try to really filter what I allow onto my spirit and through my ears, because I can, because some people just say stuff and I'm like, but bro, you haven't even been there. You're just you're reciting something that you heard in some quote, and I'm like, yeah, I get that part of it, but it's deeper than that. Right. So it's something I'm trying to work on is receiving.
But I also think it's like an energy thing, right? Where it's like there are certain people that I can receive from because I know they're good people, there's good intention, there is love behind it, and then there's people that bro, especially when you work festivals with me, everyone's trying to come to me for something, and I'm like, I don't want to, all you stay away. Like JP's got a tattoo on his shoulder that says, I don't want your dirty hands touching my soul, and I was just like, oof, that's true, man. Right. Yeah, a lot of these people, I really just don't fuck with them.
Yeah.
But like you said, the same thing here, where it's like I know the energy is good, I know the frequency is good, I know the safest space with all the people here that care. So it's like I can be real and open and raw and honest, and it's a safe space to do it, and I'm going to be supported doing it.
Right. Yeah. No, that's real.
Yeah, man.
We're in the trust tree now.
I like it.
I like the trust tree.
I'll take it.
So you were working with homeless veterans. Is that basically where you're still at, or like have you expanded out? Because I know you work work in a lot of different places, but from a mental health advocacy point.
No, I no longer work with homeless veterans. It's taxing. I do miss it, and I've thought about getting back into it. I've kind of just been leaving it to the universe on timing. Right, because I've been healing, like really deep healing for probably like 6 years now. But like that's really what made me really want to get into advocacy, because I was like, I knew I was good at it, or like helping people and really like changing the vibe like the sight of those that have been somewhere. But that's really when I was like, damn, like you know what I mean. My truth really is setting people free. And then I just kind of like I got away from it, and just life takes you on the journey. But then now I'm just doing like aerospace, but it's not really what I love to do. It's just to pay bills and be back in California, or like closer to my daughters. But no, that's really what. Because I was like I think I kind of spoke on it earlier. Like I'm part of the demographic, right? So when you're part of the demographic, it's easier for others to receive you and see you eye to eye and converse with you, other than like a social worker, to where they're kind of only taking it textbook. And be like, well, it should be this. It's like that's that's assimilation. You know what I mean? Like it's totally different. Real time is different.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at you, on the ground level. I'm not looking at you from on top of the stairs like, come on up here. You could just help people better. And then you ask them what do they need, and then I was able to go from there instead of like a social worker just being like, oh, well, they're on methamphetamines and they got schizophrenia, so send them over here. But I'm like, that's just the big scope of things. That's not like the bottom layers. You know what I mean? And until you get to the foundation and know what it's built on, kind of like the three pigs, right? Like the story of them. They're all built on different foundations. Well, only one of them's like withstood the storm. That's kind of like the metaphor for that. And the big bad wolf, right? So so when you're dealing with people, you got to really find out where their foundation is at, whether it's crumbled, the rock, whether it's mulch, whether it's quicksand, concrete. You have to find out for them individually what they have. Just like I guess just freehand. You know what I mean? Without anything, at their naked, what are their strengths and what are their weaknesses, and then you could build from there. And so that's kind of how I dealt with it. And not just kind of look at them and put them in a box. So and that's what I do with individuals. I try to take individuals the same way. Like you know what I mean. Until I really talk to you and know who you are, then I can't really, not so much judge you, but I can't really say anything. I'm just a listener.
Yeah,
I like that. You have to start. I like that you ask what the foundation is.
Right.
Because you're not just trying to put like duct tape on a crack. You know what I mean?
Right.
You need to like build it strong from the ground up.
Definitely. You might have to rebuild the foundation, but it's
just and you might have to tear it down.
Correct.
What you have.
Correct.
Right?
And you have to be willing to do the work. So are you are you really willing to do the work? I can give you this and I can give you a hand up, but it's going to take work on your behalf, because once I walk away, you're on your own accountability. And I think we kind of, you know what I mean, accountability and responsibility is a big thing. And it's a lot for people. Being accountable that you're the problem sometimes. You're keeping this cycle going.
Yes. The hardest thing is looking inside of yourself, right? And like knowing like, okay, man, I gotta change something. No, I'll just work on it some other time.
Right.
And it just starts building and building and building until you just don't feel like you have an escape.
Right. See, I can't do that anymore. When something pops up, like I'm literally like, nope, I have to. Let's journal about it. Let's call my therapist. Let's do a hypno session. Like, because I've seen that happen where I just let it go and then it builds and builds and builds, and then it's taken years to come back from it. Like my nervous system is still absolutely depleted from and still healing, where it's like I don't want to go back through that journey. So it's like when something pops up, no, I'm gonna work on that now.
Yeah,
we're not letting that linger. We're not letting that sit. If there's an issue with somebody, no, we're talking about that now. Because I'm not gonna sit and let it harbor on you. No, absolutely not. So like,
I need to get better at that too, because I harbor a lot of.
I can't, like,
because I try to work through it.
Same, but I realize like I can't, like if there's something, it's like, no, we're gonna sit down and talk this out, because I'm someone who ruminates. So I'll, like, if I get into it with somebody or there's an issue, I will think every negative possible thought, every possible scenario. That's why dating for me was impossible. Every possible scenario that could absolutely go wrong in my head, and then I'll live that whole thing out while this person has no idea what's even going on, and they're just going about their day like, yeah, it's okay. And I'm like, I just literally created a whole world that you don't even exist in.
You are the villain in my life right now. You don't even know it. They're like, hey.
We create like these false narratives that haven't even happened
all the time.
Like I, in work, like for acting, I'll think about what's gonna happen in the room when I'm auditioning, and it hasn't even happened. You can't predict the future.
Yeah.
You just like,
and you've already psyched yourself out before you even step into that room.
Yes.
And I've done that so many damn times. I'm just like, I can't anymore. It just takes it consumes me and just takes so much energy out of me that I probably do that working all the time. I'm just like, I would have the argument in my head with everybody before I even got there.
Right.
And then I get there like, oh, there's nothing at
There's
all. I
nothing
just
here.
spent the last 2 hours.
So it's
worrying
not
about
good to
it.
expect the worst and hope for the best. That's not
mean-
good. So wait, so I'm just doing this all wrong.
Expect the
Shit.
worst.
You expect the worst and hope for the best. Like you're like,
that I won't be disappointed.
I
Yeah,
do set my
right.
expectations low nowadays for a lot of things, though.
But see, I've started learning like, yeah, I do that. But like now, for anything that you know, is for me, it's like no, my expectations are high. Like this is where I'm at. If you want to be part of my life, you got to
Yes.
meet me there.
Yes.
I'm not bringing it down anymore for other people.
I'm glad you said that.
Yeah.
Because I'm a real big believer in that. Right, you shouldn't lower your standard. You know, I mean, you can step down and help somebody up, but like you shouldn't lower what you stand for or the progresses you've made to go down to someone else's level and dwell with where they're at. You've already kind of overcame that, and there's no need for you to sit there. Like you can lift them up. They need to be able to step up. You shouldn't have to step that down and lower your standards. So I'm big on that. Yeah. And it took me a long time to kind of realize that I was actually doing that a lot of times. It was like lowering my worth just instead of like raising my frequency. Don't lower your frequency.
And it's just like even people that like there's friends I've had in my life where it's like, yo, it's nothing against them.
Right,
we just
right.
aren't on that same frequency
Right,
anymore.
right.
I wish you well, but we're not there. And like
Right.
spending time with you sucks the life out of me.
Very much.
And like it's nothing personal. And people sometimes are well don't you think you're being a little egotistical or think you're better than somebody. It's like again, it has absolutely nothing to do with that. It's just their values, the way that they are now living their life doesn't align with the way that I am living my life.
That's how it was for me in the streets. Remember I kind of was telling you guys I had to leave. I literally packed up everything and threw away like all my consoles, like literally threw away all my stuff, clothes, everything. And that's kind of what it is for me. Like I had to stop living that, you know, because there was nothing coming from it, and all it was doing was, you know, was keeping me on a low vibrational plane. And just keeping me feeding off the darkness and which I used as like superhuman strength, I guess, or like a superpower, like, you know what I mean? But, you know, because it was easy for me to feed off the rage, feed off the anger. It was easy for me to justify my negative actions or the, you know, well, they deserve that. You know what I mean? So like, let me give it to them. Like, I felt like I was justifying.
And it's always easy to justify that.
Yeah, no, and
Always
it's
easy
not
to
right
justify
though.
that.
You know, so I like that's one big part of me that like I really noticed. I was like, I gotta break this all off. And trust me, people talk. You know what I mean? Like, oh, like you said, oh, you think you better than the streets now? You think, you know what I mean? You forget where you came from? Like, nah, man, I'm always gonna be who I am. Like, I also have to be able to step into a different light. You know what I mean? Because like, if I know that I could be a voice, and most of us are getting locked up, or most of us are dying off, you know what I mean? Wouldn't you want to save some of us?
Yeah.
Like, if we can, right? Like, who's gonna take care of our kids?
Yeah, 100%.
If I'm dead, you're dead, you're dead.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Who's taking care of our kids? Some random ass dude that I don't want no random ass people taking care of my seeds.
Right.
I mean, I got people that would like taco, you know what I mean,
Yeah.
spank, stuff like that, you know, but like, nah, man, I'm not here for that. You know, and so it kind of comes to a point where you're like, look, like if you respect me, then you respect me for my decisions, whether I'm holding the corner with you, whatever I'm doing, or if I'm stepping away, working with the government, doing this, and this, you should know that my integrity and my character is solid, regardless, because that's what makes my character solid in the streets too. The same thing that makes me be able to say, like, look, I need to step away from this. I still love y'all. I would still lay my life down on y'all, but I like, we almost didn't make it out last night.
Yeah,
you know
right,
what I'm saying?
right.
So like,
Yeah.
you know, like I said, and some of us don't, or you know what I mean? So it's like at some point you have to be able to just stand in your truth and be like, look, man, I gotta back up from this.
And there's always gonna be somebody trying to take you down, pull you down.
Bro, I love when people be like, yo, you changed. It's like, yeah, man,
Yeah.
that's the point.
Right.
You're
Crap in the barrel.
supposed to change and
Right.
evolve and grow, and you
Correct.
staying the same has you in this
Correct.
mentality. That's why we're not vibing. And it's
Right.
again, you want to stay there, that's cool, but I'm on this planet having a human experience as a conscious being with the sole purpose of evolving,
Right.
growing my consciousness, learning more, doing more, experiencing life different ways. So now you've done so much self work, and I know like part of your mental health advocacy is sharing your story. So now
Yes, sir.
so now you're working on that. You're working on your own book.
Right.
You do it like me and you have a similar thing on like the spoken word poetry thing, and put a
Right.
lot of our emotions there. So can you tell us a little bit about that? Because I know you don't want to give it all away.
Yeah,
but
no.
just a little bit on what you're working on and what it's
Wait,
like.
spoken word too?
Yeah, he did spoken word too.
Yeah,
Ooh,
I have.
we gotta hit open mic one
I
night.
used to
Spoken
call
word
myself
battle.
like a. No, I don't.
It's
Spoken
never
word
a
can't
battle.
really be
It's
battled.
not a
You know what I
battle,
mean?
man.
Like
This isn't- I'm not-
Is there
I'm not-
spoken word battles?
they do.
No.
Well, I mean, they have like contests. They used to.
It's like slam poetry, but it's like
Right.
you're not going you're not
At each other.
going at somebody.
Yeah, it's not like a
type
rap
of
battle.
thing,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Right.
like people are like, oh, you rap? Like no, but actually I had somebody trolling me on YouTube. they're like, man, we don't need another white rapper who talks about their anxiety. We get it. You have a problem. I just responded to him like, who hurt you? Man?
Right, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like, who damaged you?
You
It's
need
like,
a hug?
I'm not a white rapper.
Can I live? You know?
Yeah, like I'm not a white rapper. I'm a poet. It's two very different things. But no, it's not like a battle type.
No.
of
Yeah,
thing.
no,
It's
we don't
just-
want
it's
to
just
battle
like
here.
story-
We
It's
want
just like
to
storytelling.
lift everybody.
It's just like
Yeah,
storytelling.
yeah.
Oh, that's funny. No. So like spoken word was an outlet for me, right? Like, cause I never really wanted to be like a rapper. Like, although like you know, like I love music, right? And I've been around a lot of people in the industry and stuff like that. But poetry was more like, I get the feminine side of me. Would that make sense?
I mean, I
Emotional. Like
I was gonna say emotional, but like because people be like, oh, is more a feminine thing? I'm like, nah. I think it's more of an emotional depth. And
well,
like
I
just
think
being
but
understand.
But
yeah.
when they say that that's the feminine,
the feminine,
in
the feminine
man.
energy, in
right?
it. I mean, it could be.
Okay, so
I
I
think
just
it
want to
could
be
be.
politically
Yeah.
correct. You know what I'm
I mean,
saying?
if
Like,
you're
I'm trying to sound cool right
yeah,
now.
yeah,
Like,
you're,
okay,
if you're an artist, you're more in touch with the softer, sensitive side,
Right,
which is
right.
considered to be the feminine side.
right,
you know?
right. No, so like I just it was an outlet for me, right? Cause so like, and that's kind of how I started getting into writing, like it was like poetry or like through pain, right? Or like losing people at a very young age. I would just kind of scribble things, and people would be like, I don't know if they were just lying to me because they loved me or cared, or they were like, oh, that's so good, you know what I mean? I was like, yeah, you know what I'm saying? I was like, oh, shit. You know what I mean? So I thought I was good at it, right? So then I just started writing. And then it kind of just like I started having like books and stuff, and or I would take like the Bible or the Quran or and just start writing some scriptures and my thoughts and my feelings, and I was just always doing that as a young age because I felt like nobody was really listening, but the paper always would. The notebook always heard me.
Oh yeah.
You know, so I've kind of embraced that, and then through just talking to people are like, oh, you should be a preacher. I'm like, well, I don't really want to stand in a pulpit, so I'm like, no, I'm not really trying to sit there and sell people Jesus. You know what I'm saying? So
I think what poetry is like. Poetry, like when I started, it was more for me.
Yeah,
it wasn't for other people. And then I would share with other people, like, yo, that's amazing. I'm like, you can't do that.
Yeah,
They're
right.
Like, they're like, no, I can't write like that. I'm like, what do you mean? I just literally am this and this and this and this, and I feel like this.
Right.
And, I mean, obviously, it's more intuitive than that, but like, I don't understand, and I guess that's just like.
That's how I got into it. Like,
Yeah.
basically, you know what I mean? Like you said, people just were like, oh my God. And I'm like, I thought everybody could do this. Cool. Because they teach you in school, like haikus and all that.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, but I can't write a haiku for shit.
Yeah.
Same,
Like,
same.
what? I can't, I don't have no form. But they're like, no, but this is how you do it. I'm like,
No idea.
because I was an idiot in school, you know what I'm saying? Like, I went to like 5 different high schools. Like, I don't know how, like, I got kicked out of junior high school like probably like 10 times. They still kept on taking me back. But, like, so I just struggled like that part of it. But I just always kind of had a natural, like, gift, I guess, to just write.
It's just like a form of express. Like,
Right.
It's just like everybody has their own outlets. Like it's just for us. It's like it's just a form of expression.
Yeah.
Kind of like what you guys are doing.
You dance.
Right.
You
That's
dance.
why I
right?
became
That-
an actor, man. Like,
Yeah, same
I'm
thing.
terrible at math.
Okay.
Never be good at it.
So
I
how
don't
did
want to look at numbers.
how did being terrible at math make you want to be an actor? Like,
That's what I'm saying. Like,
he was like, yeah, I'm terrible at math. I'm gonna act.
people are like doing geometry. Like, you can't do that. No, I can't.
Okay.
But I have
But I
a pretty
can
face.
cry.
and I can-
He's like, but I got a
can
great
make people laugh.
smile.
But I can cry on camera. Can you do that? No.
That's
Can you cry on camera?
Yeah.
Cry.
Right now?
on the spot?
Are you gonna make me cry?
Damn, I like shit, bro. I'm not trying to cry. Like, I think I already did that. Like, you know what I'm saying?
I get paid the big bucks to do that, man. I'm all cried out, man.
So
No, what I was saying, yeah, I don't. That was just a joke about like
Math?
finding the stuff that you're good at
right.
and following it,
Yeah.
and like the stuff that makes you that gets you in touch with your the deep part of you that
Right.
that needs to be expressed. Like, you know, actors, like, we don't know how to. Sometimes we like public speaking. I don't like public. It terrifies me. And people were like, "Well, you're an actor." I'm like, "No, it's different.
Right.
I'm
Very
playing.
different
I can like be free with this character and it's not me.
Right.
But when I'm talking in front of like a small group of people, I'm, oh my God, I get like so.
Really?
Yeah.
Well,
I'm better at it now because I've done it more, but it's certain things that like terrify me.
I respect that.
Yeah. And I think it's like because when you're not confident in yourself, then how do you portray confidence to other people, right?
It's a good point.
So I think that's why at first, now that I'm talking about it, I'm like, I'm better at it now because I know who I am.
Right.
You know what I mean?
That makes sense.
Instead of like not talk, like you're saying, like you don't practice what you don't know.
Right.
Like I'm telling you, like I'm giving you public speaking, like as a motivational speaker, but I'm not motivated as myself. You know what I mean?
That's interesting.
I don't know what the I'm talking about right now.
No.
I'm still waiting on you to cry,
no,
bro.
It makes
Like,
sense. Are you waiting on?
Tune in next week
for Danny's tears.
Part 2 for Danny's tears.
No,
I did get my single tear
Give me your
moment.
tears, Gypsy.
My first, the first guest star that I did, New Amsterdam, they used a take where my single tear came down. I've always wanted. I'm like, how do actors do? You always like see. I'm like, oh, if that's a real, because there's like these things called. I know we're off topic, but there's things called cry sticks, and it's like you literally like, it's almost like a menthol or something that you put underneath your eyes, and then it'll create the tears.
Really?
Yeah.
Because when I do it, I would just put my in my eyes, hold back, and they say action, then I move down, and I would have it go down my face.
I'm like, there people use that? I'm over here suffering inside to get them tears out.
Wait, so what about your book? Give me a little bit. I'll talk to you about
yeah,
mine.
let's get back to your book.
I don't know when
public
it's coming
speaking.
out. I'm real hesitant, right? Because I want it to be perfect. And even though like it's gonna be imperfectly perfect, I get that. It's just I want to give myself about 3 years. I'm building up the brave, I guess you could say. And I think it's just time. It's just time. Instead of just letting it sit there, because I have a bunch of different stuff. I'm just like in like over the last couple of years, I've just been piecing it together little by little, because I'm bad at like formatting it, right? And everyone's just like, just do it. Like there's people that'll do it for you, but I'm like,
Right.
Yeah, but I don't really want them to see it. But I know I'm gonna have to kind of relinquish that power at some point and allow
Not
someone
necessarily.
Well,
I mean, when I wrote my book, I wrote it. This is how I like it. This is how we're putting it out. When I met with publishing companies, they're like, "So do you want to change things?" I was like, "No."
Okay.
They're like, "All right, cool." Like we with the content, what you're saying, what it's about, the whole thing. No, I don't want to change it. I like being unorthodox. I like being outside the box. I did it differently.
Right.
Obviously, there's certain little things you have to work on and change, but the whole aesthetic. Nope. This is how I want to tell my story.
And that's the thing. Maybe I said it wrong. I'm still trying to figure out how I want to tell my story a little bit. Like even though what it's about basically is just kind of like some of my trauma in life. You know what I mean? Some of why a lot of people hated me just because I was a you know what I mean? But it's just because it was more so just me being defensive in a sense and just hating humans. You know what I mean? Like I hate humans, but I love people. But it's or just some things like I said earlier, like maybe some people don't know I was paralyzed at 17 or like that I died at 21, or why or how long I've been carrying a pistol or what I've seen as a small child, you know what I mean? Just little things like that, just to kind of piece together who I am, and then I'll kind of go from there. But it's in the works, and I'm getting better at feeling like I'm supposed to put it out there, and not hold it in, and that goes kind of hand in hand with like advocacy, right? Like not holding in what I know, because I might be the word or the voice that someone needed to hear. Instead of feeling like, well, it's not my voice. Like, who am I? I ain't shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, they don't want to hear P's voice, but that's not the truth. There's our voices are for everybody. It's each one teach one, right? If we reach one person, then we've kind of succeeded. So I'm getting better at putting it all together right now as we speak, and I think this is gonna kind of help me a little bit because now there's a little bit of pressure.
Yeah.
Now you guys see P. Where's the book at? I'm like,
yeah,
like I can't hide from.
No, you have to do it. But I mean, so I started looking at it too, where it's like, cause I was like, I don't know if I want to put it out, and then I just got to a point where it's like, all right, you know what? This is it. We're not gonna be perfection on it, and like, maybe my voice doesn't change the world, but maybe I say something that inspires the person that is going to change the world, and that's the way I kind of look at it. Where it's like what is gonna resonate with somebody, and
Right.
what is that person gonna do?
Yeah.
Right.
How many people is that person gonna affect, and that like pay it forward
Right.
aspect of it, where it's like, yo, I may have like, we had 215,000 people that watched the podcast last year.
Yeah.
We don't know any of those people, but there might have been some person we saved their life,
Right,
changed
right,
the way
right.
they thought about something, changed the way their relationship was with themselves, inspired them to go to therapy. Like, we have no idea.
Right. That's dope.
Thank you. We do it for you. No, I'm joking. Seriously, that's awesome. Like to know that people are watching, and hopefully we're helping them, and that's what this is about.
But you may never know,
Yeah.
which is the wildest thing about it. You may never know.
Well,
who
you
you're
guys
helping.
have helped me, so thank you. You see, you know what I mean. If nobody's ever told you that, you know what I mean. I appreciate it. You know, because like I said, like you never know when you're going to be called, right? Called upon to speak or say something or, you know, step up. And I think for me, this was one of those moments where it's like, okay, like you can't just keep hiding in the shadows. Like it's bigger than what you could even imagine. You know, so I appreciate you guys having me and you know, just touching base with me and allowing me to kind of be open and vulnerable. Because I'm not always like that. You know what I'm saying?
I think you're talking yourself into writing your book
I
right
think
now,
so.
dude.
I think
Sheesh.
so.
I'll let you guys. I'll come to the book party.
Yeah.
You let us know.
Come
No, we
on.
want to come to your book party.
Yeah, exactly.
No, that's not to the book party. I
Right.
might even let you guys just host it. Like, look,
But not in 3
Deal.
years.
I'm very good at throwing parties.
Damn, I believe that.
I mean,
Wait,
you,
what
you've been there.
I've been to them.
You've
know what
been
I'm
there.
saying? Yes, they are very big. But wait, what? No, look, you got me nervous now.
I know, right? We were talking to someone, a guest, Nick Novicki, and he was talking about setting deadlines and like
Right.
and like 3 years. That's a pretty long ways away, but
Well, isn't that like a standard business plan? Like,
I mean, not a. Well, I
It
don't know.
depends on the business.
Yeah,
it depends
right.
on what you're doing.
Well, I mean, the first year you got to put it into play, right? To see, you know, second year you should kind of level out. By third year you should be into the green. That's the standard business plan.
I mean, maybe, but how many years you been working on it?
But I think art is.
Avidly, like or like active. Well, that's what I'm saying. I haven't really been like really addressing it.
Okay.
That's kind of what I mean.
So when you're saying you're
I've just
going to
been kinda-
address it,
I need
okay.
to actually make space
Yeah.
and you know put myself in that lane and actually start to do it. I've only been jotting in and writing
Yeah,
and
yeah.
like and I have a bunch of different books, right? But nothing to where I'm like this is actually it. So now I'm taking things from all the other books and stuff, you know, and piecing it together. But I need to actually be like, okay, like you said, set a deadline.
Yeah.
And being like this. So that's why I was just like, well, 3 years. Give me 3 years. So because I want to be realistic. Because if I don't do it in 3 years, you go, P, like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I'll hold you to it.
Thank you. I
3 years from
appreciate that. Hold me accountable. Personal.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't be so hard on yourself because I feel like what makes podcasts work is when you're honest
Okay.
and you like
And authentic, yeah.
you share the stuff that you normally wouldn't. Like people are listening and we're talking about very personal, vulnerable things, and I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
people relate to that.
Right, right. I mean, I'm
To
honest
hear
as
that,
no.
and you were honest as shit last time. I'm
Right.
like talking about your struggles and like
Yeah,
being on
yeah.
the streets and
Yeah,
like
yeah.
leaving, you know, just letting everything go. Like
Right, right.
there might be somebody out there that's like thinking about doing it or
Right.
has done it and it's like I've never known, I haven't talked to anyone about this. So like
right.
if you leave feeling like okay, I was honest with what I did and I was honest with myself, like we're good.
1,000%. No,
You know?
and I appreciate, and that's why I said I appreciate, you know what I mean, what you guys are doing, because I do think that that's why mental health is so big, right? Because there's a lot of people out there that are struggling with it, behind the bars, you know, just on the streets, you know, people that like even in our own family, like it's generational as well, and sometimes you don't even kind of really recognize that you're bringing forth more mental health issues or more mental health problems. I don't what's the proper word for it, but that you're just that you're continuing the cycle instead of breaking it, right? And so for me, it's real big to make everything stop with me, especially having two young girls in my life. I want to make sure that they know how to recognize certain things within any men that they allow into their life. Because I want them to be as safe as possible. But regardless of what decisions they make, they might have to deal with that, right? But then I hope that I've created a space to where they're strong enough to embrace that and hold a space for whoever they choose to deal with, because that's a choice. But I'd rather give them the best opportunity to deal with someone with least amount of baggage or
Yeah.
or they've done more work on it, if that makes sense. So
you've gone through the trials and tribulations yourself to show them like stay away from these pitfalls, like.
Right,
know?
and we're still going through it. It's like I'm still working on
Right,
it.
right.
Like, you know, so you know, because one is 18, one's 13, and I'm still trying to figure out how to be a solid dad. You know what I mean? And I failed miserably. I feel like, you know what I mean? And I always catch my, like the other night I had to apologize to my youngest, you know, just because I lose patience with her because she got a mouth on her. Who gave her the mouth? You know what I'm saying? Me, Taco, Spank, you know what I mean? Who taught her how to hold herself like this? We did, you know what I mean? And then I'm sitting there getting frustrated and not realizing how I'm tearing her apart. And I'm like, you know, and then, you know, after, like, even though I'm trying to be disciplined and teach her the bigger picture of it, like, I had to really circle back the next day and be like, look, man, I really apologize. Forgive me. Like, I was wrong. You know what I mean? I love you. Like, you know, I need to work on some things. You know, and she'll work with me sometimes. She'll be like, breathe. She'll be like, take a deep breath.
Nice.
You know, so little things like that, and that makes me feel good because that's a voice that I resonate with. And she does a lot of things that my grandmother did. You know what I'm saying? Like I feel like that spirit is within her a little bit.
Yeah.
And it's crazy, you know. So I'm just grateful, man. I'm just grateful. So like it's a work in progress, and still to this day I work on it daily. You know, so
That's good. It doesn't end, but it's
Yeah.
good that you're working
yeah.
on it.
Consistently.
Yeah.
But thanks, man.
Do
Thanks
the
for
work.
sharing that.
No, I appreciate you guys.
So much,
Nah,
bro.
I appreciate
Seriously.
you guys for having
We
me.
appreciate you, man.
Yes,
And thank
sir.
you all so much for watching The Chaos with mental health advocate Patchez. I'm your host, Mikey Tableman, alongside.
Danny J. Gomez.
We'll see you next time. Peace.
Peace.